Most people graduate college thinking a high salary will wipe out any student loan balance. I thought the same thing when I was in college, and then reality hit with $80,000 in student loan debt, a weak job market, and a $30,000 starting salary after I graduated. Then I met my partner who added another $60,000 in loans, and the financial overwhelm multiplied fast. I was definitely naive in thinking that I would graduate with a high-paying job and that paying off that much debt would be easy, because it definitely was not. But fast forward the story, what started off as six-figure debt in our 20s, we paid off and became millionaires in our 30s with normal 9-to-5 jobs. When I learned how to align my spending with what I value and follow a clear budget, I was able to pay off 6 figures of debt and build long-term wealth. If I ignored this, the debt would drag on for decades while income disappears into minimum payments and interest. In this video, I'm covering 3 most impactful things I did to pay off my 6-figure debt. First, I'm going to explain why clarity around your values matters more than your income. Most people think earning more money fixes debt. Income does help, but without direction, it disappears into random spending. If you don't decide on what matters, lifestyle creep will definitely take over. Here's the problem. I assumed debt would sort of sort itself out once promotions came in, but the reality is that belief leads to expensive apartments, new cars, upgrades that feel deserved after so much time studying and working. I know, because I also purchased a new car while taking on all that student loan debt, and that made it even more stressful to cover both my car payments and all my student loan payments with my living expenses. Meanwhile, my loan balances were sitting basically untouched while I mostly paid off interest on them. My partner and I finished college during that financial crisis with $140,000 in student loans and no high-paying job offers. And that first job, paying $30,000 a year back in 2010, is way far off from the dream salary that I was expecting at the time. My expectations were not aligned with reality, and I actually worked really hard to land that first full-time job with that $30,000 a year income. But instead of upgrading our lifestyle, as our low income slowly increased with promotions, we faced the numbers and we made a plan. We accepted the short-term discomfort in exchange for long-term freedom. Income did not save us, our clear priorities did. So define what matters most to you right now and build your budget around it. Every dollar should reflect a decision you made on purpose. Once you know what you value, the next step is cutting hard in the areas that do not support it. Second, I'm going to show you how to cut expenses without feeling deprived. Many people think paying off debt means giving up everything fun, and that mindset, it actually leads to burnout and quitting after a few months. The key is choosing trade-offs, not punishment. In our 20s, experiences ranked really high on our priority list. That was like dinner with friends and travel. Those things stayed in our budget. But luxury housing and new cars did not. We rented an old, outdated apartment while friends signed leases for higher-end buildings. And after I finally paid off that new car, I drove it for 10 years while others upgraded. So from the outside, it looked like we were behind, but in reality, we were directing money toward debt, and that delayed gratification in housing and cars created a lot of freedom for us later. Years later, we bought our dream home with more space than we ever needed, with a pool that we always wanted. And those short-term sacrifices led to this long-term stability. So choose 1 or 2 areas you care most about and spend there without guilt. Slash the rest of it without hesitation. So according to a study published in the British Journal of Social Psychology, happiness from spending has less to do with what you buy and more to do with why you buy it. Researchers discovered that people feel most satisfied with their money when it supports intrinsic goals. These are things like meaningful connections with others, personal growth and learning, health, peace, spiritual well-being. Spending driven by external goals such as impressing others, chasing status, or keeping up appearances was actually linked to lower long-term satisfaction, even when the purchase felt exciting in the moment. That is why it is so important to know what you personally value and not base your values on trying to impress others. Now that you see how priorities shape spending, let's talk about the tool that makes this work. So third, I'm going to explain why a detailed budget is a non-negotiable. Many people say they keep an eye on spending, and really that approach leaves just too much room for emotion and impulse to get in the way, whereas a system creates structure. So after graduating into this financial crisis, there was really no room for guessing, and I tracked my spending. The progress became measurable, and each student loan payoff, because there were multiple loans attached to that, created momentum. And over time, the 6 figures of debt, it disappeared. And later, that same approach to paying off debt built our net worth into millions. The budget wasn't complex, but it was consistent and it was sustainable. And I enjoyed life all along the way, traveling, getting married, and then in my 30s having 2 kids. And now every day I'm enjoying raising them. So my budget supports my life and my goals back when I was paying off debt, and even today as I'm continuing to build my wealth. Creating a monthly budget is assigning every dollar a job before the month begins. This allows you to track it weekly and adjust if your numbers are a little bit off. Debt freedom does not start with a higher salary. It starts with clear values, intentional trade-offs, and a system. I run a community for women paying off debt and saving their first $100,000 because this really is the hardest part of the personal finance journey. If you're ready to start saving more, I invite you to join my $100,000 savings challenge on School. The link is in the description below. And if you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in next week's video.